In 1965, Seiko introduced the 62 mass dive watch. Hugely important for Seiko, not only then, but now, 60-something years later, still a rich source of neoclassic, neo-retro reinterpretations, reimaginings that they are making bank on today. One of my favorite versions of those reimaginings of the 62 mass is the SBDC 139, one of a trio of watches that was released to celebrate the 140th anniversary of Seiko. So yes, this was a limited edition. Despite that, I absolutely love it, and I'll tell you why in the review after this. The 62 mass, from which Seiko have derived the SBDC 139, was released in 1965, around about 12 years after watches like the Submariner, and this is reflected in the design. The 62 mass is crisper, cleaner, more comfortable with mixing straight lines and curves than those other watches designed back in the 50s. I think that the more modern core of the 62 mass is one of the reasons why its reissues are so popular in the 2020s. So coming back to the 2020s, how has the source material been treated? In a word, I think it's been treated beautifully. I'll start with the case, lean, lithe, a gorgeous balance of curves, lines and finishes. I never tire of enjoying that. It's a long sweeping mid-case and the interplay of brushed and polished surfaces. Reading the text of my notes, I realise that sounds like 1,000 other watches, but in this case, what is difficult to convey in words is how the exact mix of dimensions and the sizes and the choices here are near as damn it perfect. Moving inwards, the bezel is incredible. Seiko have this unique insert treatment, giving an effect a little like ceramic and a little like sapphire that I absolutely love. It's fluid, transitory, ambiguous, intriguing, and all in all, just brilliant. Finally, the dial is lovely. Not as special as the case and the bezel, a strange inversion of normality where the dial is often the one doing the lead out the front as the lead singer. Here it's doing duty as the backing singer to the case and the bezel, but it works. The dial does its bit and elevates the entire watch design to be, frankly, stunning. This watch was released in 2021, and I thought it was one of the most attractive watches of that year. Looking back at it now in 2022, I'm thinking it's still one of the most attractive watches issued by anyone at any price range in the 2020s. Getting away from style, which is probably Seiko's long suit, and now dealing with quality, which is sort of a softer area for Seiko. How would I define this watch? A bit of a curate's egg. Good in parts and not so good in others. Let's start with the bad. My example is fine, but it would be disingenuous to admit that Seiko just doesn't seem to care about issues like bezel alignment, chapter ring alignment, the way many watch enthusiasts do. On any given sample, markers, chapter ring and bezel alignment might not meet your requirements. You need to know that coming in. Likewise, the bracelet simply isn't that much of a priority for Seiko, and while perfectly fine, it's probably not keeping up with the pack in and around this $1,000 price range. Finally, on the topic of keeping up with the pack in a way that suits enthusiasts, that 6R35 movement is probably the back marker in the pack of movements in and around these $1,000 divers. It's got an accuracy of plus 25 to minus 15, which is not ridiculously low compared to, say, a bog standard Sellita SW200, which is plus or minus 12. And it does come with 70 hours of power reserve and some anti-magnetism with that Sprong hairspring. So I don't think it's unacceptable, but your mileage may vary, and you can't deny those figures are only just keeping up with the pack, if at all. Okay, so having dealt with the bad, now let's talk about the good. The things that Seiko cares about are brilliant. To start with, case finishing is absolutely top notch. The case finishing on these Seikos embarrasses some Swiss pieces that could be 3 times their price. The bezel treatment is amazing. That coated metallic insert with a treatment that I don't recall seeing anyone else use is executed absolutely flawlessly. Not as brilliant, but perfectly serviceable. The hands, applied markers, dial finishing are right on point and what you would expect for something in this price range. Wearability is an incredibly personal thing. We all have different wrists. We all have different wrist shapes. The idea that there's one perfect size is a nonsense. But I do suspect that there is a Goldilocks zone where if you are only going to offer a watch in one size, that size will fit most people. I think the SBDC 139 is right in the middle of that Goldilocks zone. A lug-to-lug of 47.4 millimeters, this will fit just about anyone. Comes with heavily shaped case and lugs, so it's not only is it going to fit, it's going to fit comfortably. The diameter of 40 millimeters means that it's not going to shrink away to nothing on bigger wrists. It's not going to super overpower smaller wrists. It's in that Goldilocks size. One thing that caught me really by surprise, and this says a lot about the way the case is shaped. It is 14 millimeters thick. That absolutely floored me. I had to measure twice because I didn't believe I was getting the right result. But that just says how magical the case shaping and the surface finishing is on this watch. It hides that with aplomb. When this watch was new and for sale, because remember it was a limited edition, it cost around about $1,000 US, which I thought was terrific value for this level of design. Unfortunately, as I said, it was a limited edition. It is not likely to be available new from an AD today, but I do note that there are still some available on Chrono 24. They are still new in box with tags and everything, and they're still around about that $1,000 price range. So, as I said, maybe you don't get the full AD experience, but you can still pick these up new at a pretty competitive price. As always, I like to finish these all killer, no filler reviews with 3 pros and 3 cons. Start with Pro 1, the case. Lean, lithe, and a gorgeous balance of curves, lines, and finishes. The prettiest case you will see anywhere near this price range. Con 1, the 6R movement is, for me, just barely good enough at this price range, but for many others, it will not be enough. Pro 2, the dial. Subtle silver sunburst matched perfectly with simple but very thoughtful markers and hands, beautifully balancing the case and bezel. Con 2, this is a Seiko limited edition and a lot of you are not going to like it just on principle. Pro 3, and I can't believe I put this as number 3, not number 2, that bezel, I just never tire of it. Fluid, intriguing, beguiling, just incredible. Con 3, the stock bracelet, the alignment issues. Some of these fit and finish things that watch people get really into may not meet your standards. And as good as everything else is, be aware there could be some kind of a little alignment issue that you just don't want in this watch. So that's my all killer no filler review of the Seiko SBDC 139. A watch I love, but I recognize is not perfect and will not be for everyone. Love to know your thoughts. Stick them in the comments below. I've been Pete McConville and I will see you later. Please like and subscribe and you'll see more of me. Bye.